This is my latest project, one of two end tables for my daughter's bedroom. It is 100% dowel construction in cherry, and it's absolutely solid. It has 3 drawers, as you can see, and the ends are raised panel construction. And as I say, Dowelmax removes most of the complications. So let's get started. Now we begin construction of this bedside end table by making the 4 legs. Now, as with all furniture I build, I try to get everything identical. Like if I pick 4 components that perform the same function, I try to get them exactly the same as far as width, thickness, length, and make sure they're all absolutely square and true. Now this leg has a little profile, a design profile at the bottom, and in order to incorporate that, we have to make the size 1.5 by 2.25. And I have a little template which shapes that out and again makes sure that they're all identical. Now the other thing we have to do is calibrate our machinery and make sure that particularly the table saw and the jointer are absolutely square and true so that you get a real good finish. With respect to the jointer, I use the set square and make sure it's absolutely, the fence is absolutely true with the bed plate, and you'll get a really good square finish. Now, as I said, we have to ensure that all these 4 faces are identical, 90 degrees to each other. And my preference is to use the jointer and finish up on the table saw. Now, when you're doing this, to make sure you get the proper right angle here, make sure that it's pressed firmly against the fence. Now, with this, with the jointer and the table saw have different functions. You'll notice here that the cutter is at right angles to the fence, and so you create a right angle with these 2 faces here. Now, if you envisage the table saw blade is here rotating towards you, and it's parallel to the fence. So in other words, you're cutting these 2 are the important ones, this face here and that lower face there against the bed plate. Now, what I do here is, once I've done this one here and I've made sure that these 2 are absolutely parallel, I then put it into the table saw in the same position, and that will ensure that these 2 are cut in the same way. Now, for the benefit of newcomers, don't assume that you can use your planer to create these perfect, because you won't. If you're a couple of degrees out when you begin with the planer, you'll be a couple of degrees out when you finish. So don't go in that direction. Now, as I have said, it's very important to get your table saw blade calibrated properly at 90 degrees to the tabletop. And I used to that end, I used to use the set square, but I've never been entirely happy with that method. And my preferred method now is is to use 2 pieces of wood. Now, the wider the better. It has to be not as wide as the height of the blade, but 2 of these like this. Put them together, put a check mark on the top or some sort of mark on the top to ensure that you don't get them mixed up. Put them on here like this on the sled. Slide them through, take a very small cut, and then just making sure they both stay in the same position. If you don't, you won't get a proper reading. And then put them together like this. Now the beauty of this method is if you're, say, 2 degrees out on your blade setting, when you put them together it's going to be 4 degrees out, so it's really it's easy to spot and correct. So that's just a little, that's my preferred method, but probably a wider piece would be better. We're now ready to proceed with the leg, and this is the template I used for this. Make sure they're all cut identically, shaped, and I've marked this on the lower part of the leg. Now, what we could do here is use the bandsaw for this, but this is going to finish up the outside part of the leg, so we want to get as nice and a cut as we can here. So to that end, we're going to use the table saw. And the problem with that is when you're cutting here, you're going to be blind when it comes to this curve here, so you want to stop before that. So what I do is mark it against where it's safe to cut, against the bottom of the blade here, project a line up, across and down here, and then put a corresponding mark on the fence here, so that we know where to stop and we won't go interfere with the lower profile. This is going to be just over 1.5 inches, and we're ready to roll. So now the rest of the cut will be done on the bandsaw, both this contour here and this contour here. Once again, calibrate your blade. Make sure it's at 90 degrees to the tabletop and tighten everything up. Now this is the belt sander rigged up for this particular job. It's a wee bit Heath Robinish, but it really works well. that's the profile finished. Now this is a design format for the front of the table, and we have the outer legs with the curvature of the lower part. We've got what I call 2 inner verticals and 4 rails. There are 3 drawers in the design. That fits on here. This is not cut yet, so that's the reason for that. Now I do sort of grooves here on the inner verticals and also grooves on the 2 intermediate rails, but that's not absolutely necessary. Now there are no finished joints here. This is all just butted, and it will show you the importance of getting all the lengths, widths and thicknesses absolutely identical. This is really important in woodworking. So now I'll explain just how one method I use to get these lengths identical. The next step is important for 2 reasons. With our cuts, we want to make sure that the ends are absolutely perpendicular to the front edge. This sled is very accurate, so I can achieve that. The next thing is all the front rails and the rear rails are absolutely identical in length, so you do them all at the same time with the same settings. Now, what we do first is we take a cut with the sled, take a cut through, and then we know that this end is true, fair and true. Now we bring the sled back to a predetermined position, and we move this. Now we set the fence at 23 3/4 because the length that we require is 22 3/4, and we're using this 1 inch spacer. So we bring the sled back to a certain position and move the piece that's now cut here. Remove. Now I can't stress this enough. You must remove the spacer before you make the cut. If you don't, the workpiece could be jammed on the blade, and that's not wanted. So let's do a demonstration here. Absolutely perfect. Now I'm about to put together the front section of the table, and it is pretty unique, and I don't know if there's any other method that could accomplish this except with Dowelmax. Now, first of all, the whole reason for adding the inner vertical into the equation was because I didn't want the drawer to butt up against the leg when opening and closing. I didn't want that. I wanted it to butt up against the inner vertical like this. So that's the reason for including that. Now, with the old method, what I used to do when joining these was to there was 2 dowels here, 8 dowels on this side, 8 dowels on that side, a lot of work. So I decided to reduce the amount of work by joining 3 workpieces with 1 dowel. In other words, there would be 8 dowels instead of 16. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. It can be done with marks on always do the marks on the reference marks on the drilling surface, the surface to be drilled. Now you can do it either by scribing these reference lines, or you can actually use the distance gauge set at approximately 4 1/4. You butt the Dowelmax up against the thing and drill these two. This is a very accurate method of doing this. Butt it against here, do these two, and then do the same thing again there. It's all on the same setting, so it's very, very accurate. Now the other thing to remember here is that when you're putting these marks, this is the top rail, the bottom rail, which are both 2 1/4, and these are the rails for the drawers. There's 2 of these, and they're 1.5 inches. And you know, what you must remember is you want to keep everything absolutely straight and true. So after you've laid out the first leg, you have to transfer that to all the other 4 legs and the 2. We're only using 2 inner verticals and the 2 inner verticals. As you can see, it's all done here. This is done in a vise, and you scribe down across both, so that you know that you're not going to get this sort of movement. Now, what I'm going to do here is I've drilled most of these to save some time, and I'm going to drill the last 2. Let me see here. Now, again, this is 7/8. So to get the center on the 7/8, we have to use a 16th spacer. Okay. So now to do the leg, I want a 1/4 inch offset. I don't want this to be, you know, along the edge. It's not so attractive. I want it off a 1/4 inch. So because I've used the 16 spacer here, I have to use 5/16 on this to achieve the 1/4 inch spacer. So, as I said, we could have done this way, drilled these two, and do the same here. But as I say, in this case, I'm using the marks on the wood, which should still be very accurate. Now I've set the drill collar to exactly the distance for 3/4 using this setup, the distance gauge here. Now we're going to drill 1 and 3 for these two. You could drill 3 here and 3 there, but this is so strong, it's just absolutely, it'd be overkill by a large degree. Now, 2. And as I say, I'm going to do the last one here. So, if you remember the formula, this is 7/8, well, almost 7/8 thick. And 7/8 half is 7/16 less 3/8 is a 16th. So we've installed the 16th spacer in between the reference bracket and the reference block. And we must go to our check marks and down to this line here. Now, and of course in this one we're going to drill straight through, and I'll have some painter's tape on the other side to reduce the tear out. This is, even if there's a little tear out, it's not, it doesn't matter, it's going to be hidden by the other components. Now, I'm not going to, if I install all 8 dowels in here, even without glue, I'm never going to get it apart, so I'm only going to install 4. And this will, of course, will have 8 dowels along here when we put it together. And one for the marks. And then once again, going with the marks, 4. 6. And 8. And that's that section finished.